in early childhood education. Okay? So why is physical activity important? All these different components here, especially for our young kids, they need to be active, they need to be moving, they need to be playing, because that's a large part of learning is engaging and playing and understanding and connecting that play to things that we are learning. Or that they are learning, I should say. So physical activity improves all these different components right here for students, their fitness, their perception of things, muscle development, skeletal development, self-awareness, what they can do, what they can't do, self-control, their confidence on things, and their capacities for learning. And being active helps us to learn both physically and cognitively. So some characteristics of a physically literate person would be the following. It is demonstrating competence in various motor skills and movement patterns. So some of those things I showed you on that Word document, okay, throwing, kicking, striking, skipping, etc. Those are the motor skills that we can do, okay, or that we should be able to do. Applies knowledge of concepts, principles, strategies, and tactics related to movement and performance, okay? So performance meaning maybe in a certain sport, or maybe in a dance, or maybe walking, or it could be a variety of things. Performance doesn't necessarily just mean a sport, but it can be a variety of things. Achieves health-enhancing levels of physical activity and fitness. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're the fastest or the strongest, but it means that you're engaging in activity that is good for you. It's beneficial for you in terms of your health. Exhibits a personal and social behavior that respects others. Right? So learning how to, again, control some of your thoughts, some of your conversations, some of your body movements, etc. Those are important personal and social behaviors. And then values physical activity for health, enjoyment, challenge, self-expression, and social interaction. Not necessarily, you notice there's not necessarily competition here. It's okay for people who are value of physical activity as a competition, but we want to be able to enjoy that and make sure that it is something that young children are enjoying doing. We as adults probably only do things that we enjoy. So that is something then, of course, that we would translate onto our younger children as well. So motor development, how does it happen? Okay? So there's developmental direction, okay? And so if we think of young children, especially even babies, how our motor development develops is head to toe, right? And then the center of the body outward. Okay, so if you think of a baby, one of the first things they learn to control is their head, right? Before they start controlling their legs and their feet and start walking, right? They control their head. They can lift it up, they can move it around. They start to balance it, right? They become a little bit stronger. We don't need to support it as much. And then also thinking of center of the body outwards, okay? Children will learn to control their arms before they will begin to control or learn to control their fingers, right? So it's a matter of head to toe and center of the body outwards in terms of that development. There's a large variation in terms of rates of growth and development, and it is very individualized. There are milestones and there are like averages, right, in terms of when a child should be walking or running or throwing or grasping things or whatever. But so those are kind of benchmarks, but they're not the standard, and there is no specific standard. If a child is well beyond a milestone and they're delayed in certain things, then we definitely want to make sure we pay attention to that in case there are some kind of physical difficulties for that. Developmental progress, awkward movement up into greater fluidity of those movements. Okay, so anytime we're learning a new physical skill or activity, most people will be very awkward in doing that because it's something that is new. Okay, the more practice there is, the more repetition there is, the greater movement and fluidity there is with that. So fundamental motor skills, what do we need as young children that we need to have? So large motor skills that form the basis of all games and sports as well as dance. Okay, so fundamental motor skill are those large motor skills, and there's a developmental sequence for them. Okay, the early stages of each skill vary significantly from the most mature form of that skill. Okay, so some basic fundamental motor skills here include all of the following, okay? Throwing, catching, kicking, punting, striking, walking, climbing, skipping, okay, you can read those, right? But these are things that kids do quite a bit: throwing, catching, kicking, striking, walking, right? Running, hopping, galloping, skipping, climbing, etc. All these things are stuff that kids do. They might learn them without even knowing, and then they do them quite often, right? But one thing is that all of these things, you can break down the sequence into something. Okay, so let's look at a skip, for example. You have seen pictures of older people. They're getting asked to skip, and they kind of forget how to do that, right? Well, a skip is just a step and then a hop, step and then a hop. Okay, you step onto one leg, you hop, okay, on that same foot, and then you step again. Okay, so if somebody doesn't know how to do some of these skills, then we can break them down into simpler steps until they're able to learn them and understand them. And so there's multiple progressions in each of these fundamental motor skills. Okay. So locomotor skills or traveling motions, okay, are things such as this: walking, stopping, leaping, dodging, sliding, creeping, etc. Right? You have manipulative skills where you handle objects, right? You think of manipulatives are things that we use with our hands, right? But manipulatives don't have to just be with our hands; it could be with our feet, our head, etc. But skills such as dribbling, trapping, volleying, rolling, bouncing, throwing are all manipulative skills. And then non-locomotor skills are skills that we do that are mostly when we're somewhat stationary, okay? So here it's talking about bending, stretching, twisting, lifting, okay, etc., turning. So all these are skills: locomotor, manipulative, and non-locomotor skills, things that children need to develop in order to grow and develop appropriately, be active, etc. And it's not necessarily that we will teach all these skills. Many of these are things that will develop naturally as kids play. But there might be some kids who will struggle with these, and then we need to teach them some of those skills. Okay? Some perceptual motor skills are also important, okay? In regards to things that we do: balancing, okay? Spatial awareness, figure to ground perception, temporal awareness, body and directional awareness. So perceptual motor skills are things that we use with our eyes, right? And that we feel or that we sense some of these different components, right? Spatial awareness, knowing how things fit, where we're at, how far we are away from something, right? So for getting kids to understand those, for example, is an important piece of that. Even like necessarily like lining up next to somebody. Some people might line up super close, right? And they don't realize it, or they may not have that spatial awareness piece with developed quite yet. So we have to help them with that. So what influences the acquisition of fine motor skills? Okay? Fine motor skills are tiny little movements that we do. Okay? You think of some fine motor skills as grasping something. Okay? We're controlling these small muscles within our hands, for example. So our growth and development, our children's growth and development, or their maturity, is an important component of that. Okay? Coordination of sensory systems and motor skills, because it takes more than just moving my arms, right? It's a little bit easier than grabbing something very small with my fingers. And for young children, that takes coordination between the eyes and fingers and all those different components. Being supportive as adults, not rushing things. You think of children learning to tie their shoes, for example. Those are a lot of fine motor skills. Sometimes that takes kids a long time to figure that out, or it takes them a little while to tie their shoes. We may be in a rush, but we want to be as supportive as we can with these fine motor skill development. Opportunities to play with small objects in our classroom is important in developing fine motor skills. Coaching, modeling, practice, okay? Just like any type of skill, if it's a cognitive skill, whatever, we need to teach, we need to model, and we need to let them practice that skill. All those are very important. Okay, words that describe movement. So movement concepts are important, okay? Effort, space, direction, flow, percussive or vibrate, spatial relations. So these terms are important when helping kids to understand movement concepts. So what kind of effort do we want kids to give? Is it a light effort? Is it a strong effort, gentle, okay, whatever that might be. But we want to use terms to help kids understand these different concepts. Okay, high, low, forward, backward, over, under, smooth, jerky, etc. Lots of different terms that we can use to help kids understand and develop those concepts in regards to movements. Adapting to support children with special needs. So what are the safety issues with children with special needs when learning or playing in your classroom, outside, whatever it might be? So number one thing always is safety. Special needs could be students with who might be in wheelchairs. Special needs could be students that might have a cognitive disability, learning disability. There's a variety of things that we want to look at. But number one thing is safety issue. How can we modify the activity so students can participate safely, but still be included and still get as much of the movement as possible. What can they do? Work through that strengths-based evaluation or strength-based asset. Look at the instruction based on children's sensory strengths. Are they good at throwing, but they can't run very well, or whatever that might be. Be respectful, try or do what they can, repetition, have appropriate expectations, and have other students work or help them when needed possible. Sometimes that might be assigning students to help that student for the day, or maybe it's just natural that some other students would help them. So the more you include them and modify things, the easier it will be for those students with special needs to participate and develop those skills. So research shows that 60 minutes of physical activity every day is important for children in school. And doing things that enhance strength, endurance, agility, flexibility, speed, coordination, balance, all those things. So be active and do active games. You think of things such as like kickball or something like that. They're not super active because you have one person rolling the ball, one person kicking and running. And so it's just, there's a lot of people standing. So find games to play with your kids that are as much as possible. Right? Outdoors, indoors, brain breaks are a good thing. I think we talk about this in a lot of classes. When kids are doing cognitive or academic work, you want to give brain breaks. Having kids sit for too long a period of time, number one, can lose their focus, lose their interest. Number two, they also have a tendency to maybe not I forgot where I was going with that, but getting them up and active even for a short period of time, 1 or 2 or 3 minutes, helps them refocus and come back to the activity that they might be working on, or the assignment, whatever that might be. Okay? The big thing here, though, is that active games is important in regards to promoting fitness. And it's not just necessarily always like sports games, right? It's not always basketball, or it's not always kickball or soccer or football. What are some active games that you can do? Frisbee golf, okay? Getting frisbees with the kids and then having them throw back and forth can be very active, and you can play a game with it. There's lots of stuff that we can do with our young kids. Different health topics then that we might also be working with in regards to our students. Safety, nutrition, what is their personal health, social, emotional, mental health is also important. How can they prevent diseases? And then also including different health professions and activities for students and their families as well. So these biggest things here: safety, nutrition for our young children, as well as personal, emotional health, probably the biggest ones that we take a look at for our children. There are definitely health education standards in early childhood. They're not as prevalent in your classrooms as your academic standards in terms of your reading, your writing, math, etc. Those different things. But health promotion, disease prevention, influence of family, peers, social media, those people that are close to them that can influence in terms of healthy behaviors. Demonstrate the ability to access valid information, right? Products and services, valid information, make sure it's true, it's real, it's not just something that they're finding online that looks good. Demonstrate ability to use interpersonal communication skills to enhance health and avoid reduce health risks. So interpersonal They're able to talk about it, share, and communicate with others about their health risks. Demonstrate ability to use decision-making skills to enhance health, so they can make decisions whether to do this or not do that, what games to participate in, when to be active, how to be active. Use goal setting to enhance their health, practice health enhancing behaviors, and avoid or reduce health risks. So these are all standards for national health education standards. Again, these are things that you may not see. Maybe if you're at an elementary school, your PE teacher will help or will teach them if you have a PE teacher at your school. Why is hand washing so important? Something that we probably kids are very much things are ingrained with them now in regards to that. So many children do not know how to wash their hands very well. It's a skill that can be taught, and we know that it reduces contagious diseases, school absences, and increases the number of children who feel well and ready to learn. We've talked about that besides just washing at the sink. Of course, many of our schools and institutions have hand sanitizer still from our COVID times. So when should adults and children wash their hands? Coming into the classroom, before and after meals, blowing the noise, using the bathroom, touching a pet when the hands are obviously dirty. Teaching them how to wash their hands. Of course, we know that you can get some soap on them, a little water, have them rub their hands together. Singing the alphabet is one option for them to go through so that they know to do it long enough. Most children, and even probably us as adults, do not take the long enough time to wash our hands. So we want to make sure we get that done. Have a routine with your kids. You have to set up that routine for them in terms of washing their hands many times a day. Family involvement in health education is as much as you can get them involved. Some families don't have, I don't like when they say many families, that's just an estimation, I would say, but some families don't have the information they need to provide a safe and healthy home environment. Even if they did, they may not be able to do that. So just reminding them of things that you do in your classroom, hand washing, being physically active, etc. Those are important things to communicate with your families and as well as share with them some of the things you're doing in your classroom as well. So teaching in the physical domain, some things that we need to do to set the stage for that, okay? Providing materials, opportunities, and time to be able to teach skills, teach activities. You want to plan indoors and outdoors activities as much as you can. A little more difficult within your classroom, but it depends upon your space. And of course, depends upon weather for the physical domain. Do whole group, do small group, do center-based activities, activities together in games. When you do center-based or small group activities, you're looking at more of developing specific skills before you go to a activity or a game where kids can practice those skills. You want to demonstrate what's happening. You want to encourage. You also want to challenge a little bit and then problem solve with kids who might be struggling with that. Right? Guided practice, and then make sure you are supervising at all times. Supervise at all times to make sure that you are safe and that kids are safe, especially if they're using equipment with that, or they're running, or I mean, you want to make sure you're supervising. Accidents are going to happen, but we do want to make sure that if they do happen, we are there so that we understand, we can report, we can help kids if they are hurt. Incorporate physical domain related activities across lessons and activity areas. So for kids, as we talked about, play is an important part, especially in early childhood or pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. Being physically active really helps in the learning process for that. So blocks, pretend play, art, music, science, etc. All these can be connected to movement and activity. Fitness breaks, brain breaks into your daily schedule. If possible, and then involve families as much as you can as well in regards to what you're doing in your classroom, things that you're doing that connect with physical activity, movement, etc. So just situation here, right? You notice that several of your 4-year-olds in your classroom are awkward runners. Many sway from side to side as they run. Others stiffly hold their arms out well above their waists. and some repeatedly stumble as they move forward. Would you be concerned? Why or why not? And then if yes, what might you do? So think about that. Is this normal? Are they just not developed yet? Or is it something that you should pay attention to a little bit more? You want to teach, if they're struggling, you want to teach them the different skills that would help them to run appropriately. If you teach them and you work with them and it's still not developing, then you might want to be a little concerned about that, and then notify the family members. Roberto was a happy, intelligent child. You enjoy a good relationship with this family. You have noted over the years that Roberto has gained several pounds and now appears notably overweight. He does not engage in movement activities. He sits on the sidelines rather than running or playing games with friends, even when they invite him to play. Would this be a concern? Why or why not? And if yes, what might you do? What can you do to get Roberto more active in games and activities or movement? And so there could be something more going on beyond just not wanting to play, even with his friends on that. So a couple things or a couple situations that are going to probably be fairly common for you when working with kids in that, what do you do in some of these situations? Okay? So